Final Fantasy VII Remake is like the first season of your new favourite TV show. It's an excellent 40-hour introduction into the world and its characters, but you can't help craving more. Final Fantasy VII first launched back in 1997, and over 20 years later the remake arrives, but only partially. Many viewers will be aware that this game only covers a small portion of the original title, with the rest supposedly coming some point down the line, but this has not been highlighted in any of the trailers or official marketing outside of developer interviews, so there are many who may be expecting this to be the full package. There's been no mention of when to expect the other parts, how the release or pricing will work, or even how many parts are yet to come. However, though this is only the beginning, it's still a very content-heavy game, taking me 40 hours to beat the story with a healthy amount of treasure hunting and finishing almost all side quests. Final Fantasy VII is set in the city known as Midgar, a sprawling techno-industrial metropolis where the rich and poor are divided by a plate. The poor live below the plate in the literal dirt of the slums, all but cut off from natural sunlight. The rich get to live on the plate in the city itself, enjoying all of life's luxuries in their subservience to the Shinra Electric Power Company. Shinra provides power to the city and therefore has power over the city. This power is provided by sucking up Mako, the very essence of the planet's life force, and transforming it into energy. As the de facto rulers of Midgar, Shinra is about as nefarious as evil corporations can get. Enter Cloud Strife, a former member of the Enhanced Combat Unit Soldier turned mercenary hired by the eco-terrorist group Avalanche to fulfill their mission of putting a stop to Shinra's reckless exploitation of the planet. Throughout this mission, Cloud and Avalanche's leader, the gun-armed Barrett Wallace, encounter countless foul creatures and mechanical monstrosities while making a few new friends along the way. They meet Tifa Lockhart, the martial arts master and childhood friend of Cloud, and first crush of many a gamer, as well as Aerith Gainsborough, the magical flower girl and all-round earth-loving hippie.
Goddamn fucking hippies.
Various combinations of these four form your three-person party and bring all their individual talents to your gameplay encounters. Cloud is well balanced between offense, magic, and defense, as he cleaves through his enemies with his iconic Buster Sword, among several others which are found later. Barrett is a ranged tank, using his gun arm to deal damage from a distance with high health and defense. Tifa is the ultimate brawler, getting up close and personal to deal damage with combos using her high speed and attack power. Aerith is the perfect support character, as she is best suited to hanging back so she can use healing and defensive magic on her more aggressive partners, though she is still capable of defending herself by firing ranged spells from her staff. Throughout the story, the player controls Cloud almost exclusively as you navigate the world for most of the game, with a handful of sections allowing you to assume control of one of the others. In combat, however, the player can switch between all three party members at will to capitalize on their unique strengths. This time around, the combat is fully real-time compared to the original's turn-based active battle system. Every character has a standard attack mapped to square with their equipped weapon, and holding down square will alter this attack in some way, with an additional unique ability bound to triangle. Among others, these can be powerful attacks which require recharging, or start switches to favour either speed or strength. Using standard attacks builds your ATB meter, which allows you to perform additional actions like using character abilities, spells, or items. Each character unlocks new abilities as they acquire new weapons. At first, these abilities are tied to the weapons that granted them and can be only used with those weapons, but after using them enough times, your proficiency with that weapon improves.
I think I'm getting the hang of this.
This means you can use that ability with any other weapon, as each weapon has unique strengths and weaknesses, so you'll probably end up with a favourite. Every weapon has individual progression too, in the form of cores. The more you progress with a particular weapon, the more cores are unlocked, which opens up new attributes such as health or attack boosts, or materia slots. Materia is how magic works in Final Fantasy VII. These are crystallized orbs of Mako, the same energy that the evil Shinra company is extracting. These can be inserted into weapons to give the player access to different spells, including elemental magic like fire or lightning, or defensive magic like healing or revival spells. In addition to spells, different types of materia can imbue the character with passive effects, like boosted health or magic, or additional abilities that aren't tied to weapons. Others also only work when paired with another in a linked slot. For instance, if you pair a fire materia with the elemental materia in your weapon, that weapon will then deal fire damage with every hit, in addition to giving you access to that spell. The strongest materia allow you to summon massive powerful creatures to fight alongside you. These guys have dramatic anime-style entrances letting you know they mean business and exit just as spectacularly. The player cannot assume control of these summons, but you can spend ATB to have them launch more devastating attacks. You can add more materia slots by equipping armor, which also comes with its own stats. All these materia allow you to kit out your character as you see fit and develop specific builds in tandem with the weapons, cores, armor pieces, and accessories. If you can't be bothered with going into each weapon core and manually acquiring specific attributes, you can set it to automatically promote attack damage or promote defensive properties, or balance the weapon across the board. Personally, I'd acquire as many materia slots as possible possible, then switch to different automatic settings depending on each character. It's these characters which helped solidify Final Fantasy VII as one of the all-time greats in the world of gaming, and each of them is greatly expanded in this remake. Since this is only the first part, there are many significant story beats and revelations that don't happen until the gang leaves Midgar. Some of these are given to us in this entry, while others are teed up nicely to be explored much later. This is why I said it feels like a TV show. That TV show is really great, but there's so much more to come, and without knowing anything about when this will happen, it just leaves me with the feeling that something is missing, and that something is the rest of the game. That's not to say that the Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't a full and complete experience in its own right, and having played the original, I know what's coming and what to expect, but to a newcomer, the ending might come off weirdly. There is plenty of additional content to stretch out what was only a handful of hours in the original into a full-length 40-hour AAA experience, which is both to the game's benefit and detriment. If the original is The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, then the remake is the special extended edition. For fans of all things Final Fantasy VII, from Crisis Core to Advent Children, every ounce of additional content is more time in this world, adding more detail to the experience, but to others it might just come across as filler. This is particularly problematic when the game introduces side quests. The game is fairly linear for the most part, as was this section in the original, until certain sections where side quests are brought in to flesh out these environments. Many of these serve to give more detail about the characters and the role they play in the story, but others feel more like fluff pieces in a tabloid newspaper. When Cloud and Barrett return to Sector 7, a district in the slums home to Avalanche's hideout in the 7th Heaven Bar, the game's pace slows to a crawl. Since Cloud is a merc, Tifa tells him to find jobs with other members of the community to improve his reputation. These odd tasks make for a good bit of background storytelling, as the NPCs will react to Cloud differently if he's done more jobs and paint more of a picture of who Cloud is, as well as potentially rewarding you items or money. However, so many of them just feel like tedious detours on an otherwise awesome road trip. This is a particular problem in the first few hours, but becomes more palatable later when these can be skipped over entirely and you just want to mainline the story. And once you complete the game, you can go back through chapter select to clean up anything you missed while keeping your character levels and gear. The original was very tightly paced, moving from story beat to story beat rapidly, and before you knew it, you were out of Midgar. Here, since you never even leave Midgar, the game is often left playing for time, and the exquisite pace of the original is compromised, though this may not be a problem for newcomers who don't know what's up next. The thrill of getting to the next exciting story beat from the original is often dulled by all this excess baggage. That's not always the case, as some of the additional content gives much needed backstory to certain characters who are about as three-dimensional as their original character models. That said, the visuals here aren't exactly perfect, as there are numerous dodgy textures, particularly on doors, which look like they're about to pop in, but they never popped. The character models and environments though do look stunning, with huge variety between the dusty rusty slums and the smog-blurred neon upper city. Every time Cloud and company are outside, the world is backed up by a huge pre-rendered background image of Midgar. Some may not like this as a dated design choice, but I think it's a nice homage to the art design of the original, which pioneered pre-rendered environments. There are also a few pre-rendered cutscenes which step up the visual quality exponentially and make Advent Children look like a 4-year-old's drawing on toilet paper. Pre-rendered or real-time, the game boasts numerous cutscenes, after all it is a Final Fantasy game, many of which feature outstanding anime-level action scenes. Luckily, none of this is lost in the actual gameplay, as the battles explode with colour from spells, abilities, and summons spectacularly. With more detailed visuals also comes more detailed story, which explores each character individually, and each has their own character arc. Some are obvious classics, like the cold-hearted merc finding warmth and softening up to his friends, while others are more subtle and complex, like the girl who knows that stopping Shinra is the right thing to do, but at what cost? Many of the game's original puzzles and mini-games return and are more fleshed out than ever before. Mercifully, the synchronized lever-pulling puzzle is less frustrating than the original, though it's still pretty annoying. Mini-games like the squat challenge can now be repeated at different levels for different rewards. While some of the new additions are undeniably filler, others are really interesting plot points and themes, such as a new subplot focused on fake news and misinformation. There are some huge changes towards the end and, without spoiling anything, may prove to be some of the most controversial. At one point, the game takes a leaf out of the Bollywood handbook and features a full-length, multi-part dance number. This may be the worst or best thing you'll experience in a video game this year, though it still doesn't hold a candle to Dante's Michael Jackson tribute in DMC5. The abundance of filler content is perhaps the game's biggest sin. Limiting the remake to only one part, only to have it filled with uninteresting blow, is frustrating, as the time spent on that could have been better utilised elsewhere. Namely, the inclusion of the self-described lab rat dog Red 13 as a playable party member. Red is a wolf-lion shaman thing, and a fan favourite from the original, but he is relegated to a guest party member this time around. This was talked about in advance, and the reason given was because he only shows up at the end of the game, and while that is true, there are still several hours of gameplay left before the credits roll. He even has a number of his own moves, which suggests that having him playable was originally on the cards, but they ultimately opted against it. This is frustrating and disappointing, but I suppose it is what it is. While Red hasn't returned in a full capacity, the music absolutely has and is even better than ever. The original's music, while undeniably iconic and memorable, was limited by the technology of the time. Now the full potential of Nobuo Uematsu's incredible score is finally realized. Throughout the game, different nostalgic motifs of various tracks can be heard in a number of different styles. I criticised the demo Scorpion boss fight for losing that hard edge of the boss battle theme, Those Who Fight Further, but this was just one version of the track in just one style. That song plays through all different boss fights as it once did, but with several major changes. Music can be collected or purchased throughout the world and can be played on jukeboxes. Many of the songs are reprised in different ways, even rearranged to fit into contrasting genres and moods.
That's how it's done. You've got this, come on! Your form's looking good!
Hearing the peaceful Aerith's theme rearranged to a much darker tone subtly shifts the atmosphere as things take a more sinister turn. When traversing the seedy streets of Wall Market, the melody and tune remains the same, but the style and genre completely changes as you approach the Honeybee Inn versus when just walking the high street. Altogether, the Final Fantasy VII Remake is an exceptional recreation of Midgard that makes the city feel much more alive than ever before and the stakes even higher. The story and all its characters, not just those in the party, have been thoroughly fleshed out. It ultimately lets itself down by not only being limited to just the opening section, but by stretching what it can explore with a little too much bloat. It left me wanting more, but not more filler. If the time spent on fluff content was repurposed to perfecting the core tenets of the original, the overall experience would have been all the better for it. However, I certainly had an amazing time with Cloud and his party, growing more and more attached to these iconic characters and the powerful story as time went on. The onus is now on Square Enix to finish what it started and be prompt about it. If fans have to wait another 20 years for the next part, I'm not sure how many fans it'll have left. There is plenty to love here for nostalgic fans of the original, with classic events as well as new surprises and additions to get caught up in, though not all may be for the better. New fans looking to see what all the fuss is about will surely have a blast here too, but all the foreshadowing and story teasers will go over their heads to be resolved God knows when. Anyway, I'm going to use chapter select and go back and change what dress I told Tifa to wear because yes, that actually matters and has an impact later on. It may only be a minor impact, but I'm going to mine all this extra content even if half of it is just filler.
Oh yeah, another one in the bag.